Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are joining. Okay, let's get started. Let's begin this webinar. As those who join later, they also have access to the recording. So welcome everybody. This is Linh Nguyen of IT-Conductor. And today we are going to share some experiences related to a lot of the different SAP deployments we've been involved with fairly recently across different types of deployment, SAP RISE, or now called ERP Private, and also cloud deployments across most of the hyperscalers, hybrid landscape, as well as on-prem. And a lot of the issues and challenges related to operating SAP, these environments. We are going to talk about the kind of operational failures, some real experiences of customers that we have been encountering, and they are expressing pain points. So we share some of that experience. And from there, we can look at what are the opportunities for improving the scenario, the situation. Looking at the broken systems, we can identify a lot of areas to fix, to help the teams. Essentially, we're here to help SAP technical folks manage operations better, more efficiently, and to get them to the lifecycle management in an efficient manner. And so from those pain points, we'll look at some of the answers or solutions to those pain points. And then we will look at in how we approach it from an automation platform standpoint. We'll highlight some scenarios in answer to those pain points, and then talk about the success that customers has experienced by automating these experiences. So today we'll go into at detail and some demos of some of these scenarios. We won't really cover all of that. There's a lot of automation here, but we will have references as to where you can get further information from that, and then open up for any Q&A if needed. But there'll be an invitation at the end to participate in our programs. We have many different trials. If you want to talk and express some of those areas where they have definitely needs, we can definitely help you look for automation solutions around your problem areas, or just even to discuss some of the areas that you may see that we don't. Customers always bring the best kind of pain points for us to look into scenarios that we may or may not already have looked at. Yeah. So without further ado, again, I'm Linh Nguyen. I've been in SAP for like 30 years doing implementation as well as automation solutions for customers, large and small. Most recently working as an advisory on many different type of cloud projects as well as the automation projects. So here's the first one I want to talk about from a real customer story. Everybody in SAP runs SAP with a lot of batch in terms of the workload on the systems. So it becomes part of a very critical environment to manage, because there are thousands of jobs could run on systems. Average customers run probably 300 to 400 jobs across the enterprise. They are scheduled, they are on demand, etc. And they process everything from retail orders to manufacturing processes. Any failure in these jobs can cause a significant amount of delay. We've had experience where a retail customer has had duplicate orders because jobs failed, they rerun, and some of those jobs actually are basically slow, they haven't failed yet. So the monitoring for jobs is critical because the whole business depends on these, whether it's payroll data, whether it's incomplete job, whether it's stuck in some phase. And so a lot of customers now have like manual folks checking these jobs, make sure that they run okay, that they finish on time. Are they waiting for something, or they are just essentially aborted and you have to rerun them? Otherwise, business delays downstream can really be impacted. So we've seen things from manufacturing warehouses to, the order processing at least 10 to 12 hours behind. We've seen stores where retail couldn't get their inventory updated and impacting these type of shipments, as well as the store experience a significant delay in the latency. So these are real, our customers today, again, in every single day, thousands of jobs, and they need to be observed, they need to be monitored. Not only that they run, but they run on time. And if they also start late or they didn't run at all, so it's easy to monitor a job if they finish or they aborted. But what if they never ran? That's also an important criteria as well. So we've seen customers where and say, hey, I didn't get that data, and that's actually an issue right there. So that's one scenario. We've seen customers there experience problems related to job management. Also, a real customer story here. Recently, we did an audit of a customer environment where they are running on a hyperscaler cloud. They have S4 environment, production, non-production, the usual landscape. And somebody's always assuming backups are being run. And what we went and discovered is that there are unsuccessful backups just because you schedule them, right? Doesn't mean end to end they ran successfully. Even if the job ran, you thought it ran, but it never got out through to the network, into the backup environment, into the catalog. So we found scenarios where, for instance, HANA backups were at least 2 to 3 months old in the non-production system. In production, everybody has eyes on it. But what happens if you have a 3-system, 4-system landscape and some backups don't run? QA team is doing testing. They suddenly require a restore because basically that's what testing is. Sometimes it can be destructive. They want to roll back the scenario. So we've had cases where some folks were using SAP tools to schedule jobs. Jobs were basically not running either because of expired credentials or what have you. And suddenly now you have a compliance issue where even a QA environment with 20 engineers working on testing, different regression testing, are delayed because they needed a restore. Now, thinking about a restore, you are looking at going back several months, rolling back, let's say a full restore, and then rolling forward the logs for several weeks at a time. That could take literally a full week to restore a system. So this is a serious issue. I think data recovery is something that we see as a real problem. You don't need it often, but when you do need it and it's not there, that means you violated compliance related to kind of IT or RPO business. So on cloud, because it's involved multiple teams as well, becomes very much of an issue where there's assumption that other teams are running something that maybe not. So you need a complete view of all your backups, when they run and when they finish, etc., to be in compliance. Sharing another customer story. Recently also, we had a customer that did a refresh, and in fact, they refreshed the system 2 to 3 months ago already. And they didn't know until we did the audit that the system itself had connections that were still trying to connect to production. Now, luckily, those connections actually didn't go through, meaning that they connected, but the jobs were not relevant anymore. So they were running connectivity because they did a refresh from production, and a lot of those connections, a lot of teams that went in and just maintained the ones they needed for testing in QA, they didn't do a full cleanup. They didn't do a reconfigure. They didn't make sure all of the end-to-ends were checked. So you can have these scenarios where there's definitely data leak, security risk. You might have even accounts that are from production that perhaps somebody else could access in your system, right? So there's hidden risk in doing refresh and not completing the 10%. Maybe you said you did 90%, you reconfigure this, you run your logical system changes, you configure, but maybe didn't do the 10% because there could be 100 different things to do. And we have engineers that actually completed, handed the system over. While he thought he would hand over the system, he went home for the weekend. Nobody could use it because he didn't put the license back in, right? As simple as that, we have a lot of stories around system refresh that go wrong because of the lack of completeness in the end-to-end runbook being implemented. So there's a lot of issues here that we see in real life. The customers are doing refresh. And this may end up that they say, I don't do the refresh too often because it's too difficult, takes too long, too much human resources, too many issues related. So they tend to only do it when they really, really need to, end up being 6 months or a year instead of more regularly for quality assurance testing. Let's go to the next data to share. So today we have a very high dependency on data. We call this data pipeline. You could be running anything. You could be running SAP, the landscape transformation, SLT, to be running BODS, the data services. You could be running a multitude of other replication solution for maybe downstream data warehousing, for synchronizing inventory into some sidecar application. Whatever it is in today's world, SAP doesn't live alone. So there's a lot of connectivity, a lot of data flow. And in this data pipeline, it becomes very important that, things are moving, and issues identify early, resolve so that you don't have latency. So we had a customer that had SLT in the picture, and they were leveraging the sidecar application in the HANA database to use for reporting, for store inventory. They have buyer portal, and all that sort of stuff, but they are having mismatch in inventory. So that means they can't trust the data, right? So let's say the data order come through S4, some of that information goes to a sidecar, another application using that to report to storefront. And you have this downstream dependency, or whether you're doing this for analytical purposes, you're using very old data that you don't even know. And so there's an issue here where we see SAP being interconnected. You have to monitor end to end to make sure that the work streams that the business is running on this business process, depending on data pipeline, doesn't have interruptions or delays, or worse yet, they don't even trust the data. So once you stop not trusting the data, it becomes kind of a useless case for using some kind of downstream analytics or replicated data, right? So in this case, we had a customer that just said, "Hey, I have latency. The business can't trust it." Sometimes they would re-enter orders because they enter from storefront. They didn't get to the back end, but they never replicated to where they actually are exposed to sidecar for reporting to the store portal. So they can't really check, and they would put in the order again. They end up with duplicate orders. That is a high overhead in terms of having to go in and fix that issue. So this is an example that we see here. One last one I want to cover, just to give you a nice spread of pain points across different environments, is we also saw over a couple of different times across different customers and on different clouds managed by different groups for managed services. But they've requested either restart of a QA box for testing, to right size it, to reconfigure some parameters. And next thing you know, they have production that goes down. And this is kind of unheard of. This is a managed services. You put in the request. I say, okay, I need to patch or restart this. And next thing you know, you've got people calling in or reporting issues with a production environment. So literally, they're taking down the wrong system, right? So it's obvious the impact here. Once you take it down, it's something wrong. It impacts the entire dependency of business process. So that production may not be the only one. There are other systems that are dependent on it, needs to get resynced up. So we've seen this across, in fact, over the last 2 years, multiple instances of this, and this should not happen. There should be automation today to allow you to put a part of the change, implement that change via automation, so there's no kind of typing in something manually, taking down the wrong system, or have engineers log into the wrong host, right? It's very important that today, where you may be running an environment with, let's say, 30 systems and 100 VMs, the names all sound the same. You have access to it, and in the heat of the moment, somebody logs into the wrong box and execute the wrong command, takes it down. So this is a real situation that we've seen that has been an impact to real customers and loss of revenue from that. So let's summarize. In today's 2025, we should not be doing manual operations where things or tools or solutions are available. But a lot of what we see when we go into customer environment is very much manual. 70% or more, 65% run books on spreadsheets. So they may have a document, a spreadsheet. You ask, how do you do this today? Like, for instance, how do you do a refresh? They will take out their spreadsheet of all the tasks, yet the tasks are not adapted to each system. If you're doing CRM, BW, ECC, S4, might be different, right? That introduces a lot of errors into the process, whether missing config, maybe you have to take extra outage to fix something, right? now you're also in a cloud or multi-cloud environment. So most customers who've gone to SAP RISE may still have environment dependent on some SAP hosted system. It's interconnected hybrid, so it's complex. Also, the operations that everyone's doing is not tracked down to the change ticket, who's doing what, etc. It's kind of a weak audit. Just say, hey, send an email, somebody will do it, and then reply back that they're done. And today, it should be tracked very closely through an online change management system that can also automate the task. All right, and because the slow responsiveness of doing things by email, waiting for somebody, issues being found, and just taking a long time to recover from a problem, that's an issue. So we can't always avoid the problems, but we can automate as much as possible, as well as to help recover from situations like that. Right? So what are some of the risks that we identified in doing the manual mode? If you are operating in an enterprise today, highly complex, very important business processes, outages could be avoided, right? So your unplanned outages are not necessary. You should minimize unplanned outages. You have your planned maintenance where you can automate doing things like patching, etc. But the unavoidable situation, you can minimize that, but the avoidable ones are the ones we see operating in a very dangerous, risky environment. And again, if you're in the compliance gaps, talking about issues of lack of oversight, your digital workflows, you're sending emails around, you're sending chats around, and it's not being captured in central place where you say audit trail on who is doing what and when and why, right? Approval process in terms of change management as well. Those can add delays and bottlenecks, right? Dependencies on individual and emails are today is so 1980s. What we think is how you operate, instead of just getting a dashboard where you have a change record, you have somebody approval, notify, clicking on approval, that type of thing. The risk of not doing that is when you get audited, like who did what. It takes a long time to get that information and stay in compliance. Okay, so what is also the hidden costs? You've got a lot of overheads operating environment manually. So we had a customers that had like 17, systems, and you might have like 20, 30 people involved in managed services, spending a lot of time doing things like manual checks. Every single day, they're checking to see if they're ready for business. So we talk about ready for business. What does that mean? It's technically ready, functionally ready. All of this stuff is doing manually, right? And they don't have any time to do real work in terms of being the analytical and analyzing costs. Instead of reducing system usage, they just keep adding, growing more space. We had a customer as recent as this past week. I found a customer, they were running their QA system at twice the size of production. I was like, why is it twice the size of production? They don't know. They said, well, a year and a half ago, we refreshed and we needed to run something, so we size it up. Well, then they never size it down, and it kept it like that. So they're paying for almost 18 months where the system was supersized. And I say, why? It's because nobody's looking. Everybody's busy doing their day-to-day thing. They're not doing proactive looking and analyzing and utilizing the resources properly, right? So that's also a problem. And then also, of course, if you don't have a global view of your end-to-end business, you can end up missing the interconnectivity and dependencies. And one change here can impact the entire chain. So change management has to take into account when you're looking at a complete end-to-end picture where you have every single step, whether it's a source, whether it's a target, whether it's a middleware system. It needs to be in the mode where you have complete visibility. So now we look at all the kind of problems that exist, right? We can go to more of a need for automation. So really the customer need is real-time monitoring, real-time observability is essential for business, right? Nobody can just fly blind, and that's a dangerous situation. Another thing is to make sure that you have some kind of change automation, right? You can't just be submitting, like a ServiceNow ticket, but then everything else is manual, right? And you just afterthought come back to the ticket and try to update something and this. So the digital workflow has to keep up with today's changes. Today's changes are much faster. They need to flow and automatically track and update wherever possible. Not everything can be automated, but as much as possible that you can encapsulate that in an automated digital workflow, that will really be the need to solve a lot of those problems of manual process. Another thing is obviously the compliance aspect of things. So we know security is important, and they have to be checked and double checked before approvals. But things like backup and compliance things, you need to have a backup dashboard. You need to have ability to have a report go out that every system is within its variance acceptable for backup, how all those my last successful backups. These are the type of things you should be getting reports automatically sent to your team or your management to make sure I'm in compliance. So when the auditors come, you're simply just saying, hey, look, I'm in compliance. Here's all the reports. These are daily, etc. Right? There's also a great need for standardized runbooks. Okay, critical things that we do, and we say, hey, I do it all the time. Yes, somebody has it on some kind of documents or notes or whatever. But things like patching systems, kernel patching, OS patching, system refresh, these are highly complex, and you don't do it every day. Maybe you do it every month. Maybe you do it every 3 months. People forget, right? Having a templatized, tested, standardized runbook to apply to your environment will help you standardize operation, reduce the risk. So the need there is actually very, very real. And all the customers we talk to, some of these are kind of frustration because you have a revolving door of talent that goes and comes, you get temporary help. You should digitize, automate that as a need so that when you explain somebody new, you already have a map of your system. You already have standardized runbooks. How do I do refresh here? How do I kernel patch here? How do I this to reduce errors, right? And then the other need we talked about, integrate AI push to get data into cloud for analytics. Let's say you're sending data to, I don't know, Databricks, or you're sending to, Azure Data Lake, whatever it is, you have a data pipeline. That's going to become more important. SAP is not going to store all the data. If you have S4, you're not going to store years of data there just for these use cases. It's too expensive. So a lot of companies will want to send the data somewhere else for analyticals, for other use case. It becomes more and more a need to be proactive to manage these data pipeline. Let's also look in things like your business checks. So every day, what does it mean? Every customer, what does it mean to be business ready, right? If I have a 24/7 business, maybe there's a couple shifts, 5 days a week, etc. It shifts to know that my system is ready. Is it good? Is it healthy, right? We know that. We need to be, you shouldn't be starting an exercise routine if your doctor hasn't given you the clean bill. Say, hey, this is, you're ready, you've done the checks, you're healthy, I recommend you do this. So an automated business ready check means that I have some level of dashboards or reports that gives me the thumbs up on my status of my systems. You want to go through a pre-launch sequence of checklists. So that should not be something manual and laborious where everybody's doing it manually. There could be some manual parts at the end of the day to say, okay, I check and I approve, everything looks good, or no, there's a red flag there, we need to fix that before we say we're ready, right? So this needs to be automated so that we can do that. So let's take a look at that we have this need now. What is the answer to this need? Well, for years, we've been building automation, either automating for one activity, one task, but the real need is actually to combine all these, what we call SOAP, or Gartner terms as SOAP, Service Orchestration Automation Platform. What does that mean? It means we are integrating a complex landscape environment between on-prem cloud hybrid. You're unifying the observability, you're unifying the monitoring, the automation of trigger-based actions, whether you have a detected scenario with a pre-configured fix, you're triggering this auto recovery, right? And then you're also helping by orchestrating the longer-term processes. So let's say system refresh, patching, something like that takes hours, a lot of labor, can be orchestrated intelligently through service orchestration, right? And using pre-built automation templates to help you have a service catalog ready. that you go in there and you say, I want to open a change for this. I will include this automation. I will get my workflow for approval. And then from there, I will deploy it. So doing intelligent automation, unifying the monitoring. Everybody out there you talk to in enterprise says we have monitoring. But you know what? At the end of the day, when there's a problem, different groups are scrambling for data, and then they don't agree on the data. Somebody's looking at the OS, somebody's looking at the database, somebody's looking at the application, somebody's looking at interconnectivity. All of these need to be unified under one dashboard, one umbrella. You can do troubleshooting together as a team and agreeing on what the root cause is, as to also fix and return the problem back to a healthy service. All right, so that visibility is important as well. And then today, well, we know also SAP doesn't live alone, right? Non-application is also multi-client, multi-cloud, and hybrid. We need to meld this into a consolidated service catalog that offers ability to orchestrate and maintain a healthy environment across all enterprise, all teams. So not one tool for just one team to use, right? We could put in teams tools for just basis and management won't see it, or put it in for, service managers, and then nobody knows when they tell you that there's a problem, go fix this. So we need to unify this. So this is why IT-Conductor as a cloud-based platform brings together and solves multiple problems as one end-to-end integrated platform. So let's look about how do we automate this? At the end of the day, we say, okay, here's all the problems, here's all the needs, and we have a platform. What are some examples that we can automate for the technical team that has to handle these long lists of requests, right? Whether it's patching, whether it's refreshing, whether it's deploying new systems, whether it's providing observability or troubleshooting for performance, etc. We can look at increasing observability as a monitoring platform. We can also increase the reliability of systems by identifying issues, bottlenecks ahead of time, right? Running pre-configured checks to make sure everything's healthy, but perform kind of automated recovery or fix when we have issues. So examples might be file systems, might be jobs, might be queues, might be anything that may fail, and you have a way to fix them. So what we're looking at here is maintaining a lifecycle, right? So SAP, again, needs a lot of caring, feeding. Lifecycle operations are important, right? So we did a session about SAP Cloud AOM before, and really SAP is recognizing lifecycle is very important. How you approach it is different customer to customer, depending on your environment and your methodology. But we're saying, hey, automate the complex stuff. So automate refresh, automate workflows. Okay, now you're also looking at things like change management. Can I automate my change, moving transports? Can I automate by saying I need to even put in a change request to restart a system? That should be automated so that you're not going to have a mistake and taking down the wrong system, right? Anything from an automated basis task to restarting failed jobs, stuck queues, down printers, something like that is a real thing that we can automate. So that's one of the things our customer realized that they need to do in order to centralize the management and also capitalize on being able to stay on top of errors and have a low head count, but manage a lot more things efficiently, right? So then also running a central operations, you need to have a dashboard with real-time business readiness tracking, right? We need to also have a way to do real root cause analysis and not spend time after time looking at spreadsheets and going into different systems and getting all that. So there's a lot of use case there. And really what the business outcome is to reduce a lot of these cycles, whether it's patching, staying on top of security, whether it's refreshing, getting your QA environment up and running over a weekend and not a whole week or even longer. Coordinating downtime. So for instance, if you have a maintenance and it takes your team an hour just to bring all the systems down, you've wasted an hour. Why not implement automation, orchestrate, bringing down the systems that way, right? Okay, so these are some examples. Let's go through some of these that we kind of highlighted, and I will go into and show you some of the dashboards. I won't show all of the demos because some of them, of course, takes a long time, like patching, but we have all of that listed on our website that we can show you all of the documented scenarios it's implemented, right? So why does automation matter now? Obviously, we know we have a serious need to get more efficient and reduce error rates. and move forward the environment to a digital workflow environment and have an orchestration platform. So really what automation can do today is really encourage customers to have that central service catalog to reduce incidents that could be unforced errors, right? And to provide better resilience in the system. So a lot of these are available as part of what the automation catalog looks like. So built for real SAP operations, IT-Conductor, we've been, again, in business for over 11 years. And the solution was built around 20 plus years of my experience and other team working in the field to bring automation to customers. So today, when we do that, we build that kind of service orchestration and the intelligent automation in a unified approach into customers. The strategic benefits in this is obviously reducing the overhead of maintaining a complex SAP or enterprise environment. So where's the proof in this? We have lots of customer success stories, and I can share a web page on our website. We have a success link. Lots of our customers have implemented everything from observability all the way to complex automation like system refresh or change management, SAP automated transport management, as well as doing complex scenarios about integrated environment, monitoring everything from backups to end-to-end business workflow, as well as even some of the business processes, right? And some of our customers have engaged in doing on-prem to cloud migrations. We are part of that migration movement. We have ability to also, last month did a webinar around the Summon, our tool to do the software update manager monitoring to provide additional analytics as well as monitoring capability to a very long and complex process. So I'm going to go through quick demo, and then maybe we can take some questions. Okay. So here we go. Let's talk about, this is the success stories page. So you're welcome to visit. We have, again, highlighted many customers. These are the proof in the pudding, right? We're not just talking about it. We're doing it with real customers, real partners, everything from workload migration to operational day-to-day, transforming business digital operations. So that's just a highlight. I want to show you what IT-Conductor, some of the scenarios look like. So at this stage, actually, let me stop my camera because don't want to do that. Okay, so just where I don't have a lag in the demo. Okay, so this is our operation kind of overview in our demo lab environment. You can see all kinds of systems being actively monitored and managed. So everything kind of falls into place for enterprise that run a lot of complex SAP and interrelated systems. You have recovery actions that are things that automatically trigger based on some automation and some detection of problems, etc., that could be fixed with an automation, whether it's restarting printers or starting transports, anything like that, that could be automated as part of a request and recovery or a detected scenario. Okay? From here, you can see our global dashboards of different systems, whether it's on-prem, whether it's on cloud, multi-cloud. We are an agentless platform, so we can deploy it and have visibility and also control very quickly in those type of scenarios. We also have one of the use case that we highlighted was stop starting the wrong system, right? So IT-Conductor can connect to all of your SAP environment, full stack from SAP down to database, down to OS, and even things like the virtualized environment if you're on cloud, maybe VMware, maybe Azure, AWS, etc., GCP, have ability to take a system, scheduled outage, part of a change request, and fully bring it up and down using widgets or automated on a schedule, right? So we can do full stop, start, and that what means is that we actually have workflows that dynamically will follow the systems in terms of its structure. So if you have a single stack, multiple stack, etc., it can go through a workflow and implement those processes to bring it down fully. So what this does is give you full compliance, logging, every step is tracked. If it fails, it will notify you. When it's done, you have a full record of when it ran, in terms of when it started, when it stopped, right? So this is an example of that type of stop-start automation workflow. Here's also the service catalog example. So imagine you have an SAP environment, you have a team, databases, admin, security folks, whatever. We have the service catalog where you go in, you self-service and say, I want to start a rolling kernel update on my SAP system. Maybe I'm going to roll out some security patches and putting a latest kernel in. Maybe I need to activate users for a particular maybe update. So I'm running some, I need access to DDIC, or maybe I need an access to a HANA user. So you can do through this, create the request, and it will basically go through an audit where you can get the approval and then it gets going. So a lot of these are what we call workflow automation. You can see different types of orchestration. This can be anything. A service catalog can be changed that you use in your environment, whether it's transport automation, whether it's doing patching or rolling out a complete system. Okay. When we talk about business ready, every customer has access to a tenant health dashboard, right? What are some open issues? So you may be going through and you say, is my system ready for business? There may be a bunch of issues. Maybe my jobs are failing. Maybe my connection, my logs, or my target status for my replication is down, right? So you have a global dashboard. You can see even things like what are some of the alarms that gone off in the last 30 minutes or hour or 24 hours. You have complete view here. You can also glance that we are doing automation if there are some failed things like failed transports because maybe somebody didn't release it and put a request in. These can be captured in one place. We can also get all your systems under one umbrella for monitoring. So any systems that maybe you're doing activity on, we can actually show you your maintenance mode in some of these. So this is a tenant, but let me go through the example of a automation to help with the change management. What we call CHI is Change Automation Intelligence. This captures the transport process. So you can see here as an example, we're transporting, SAP transport across dev QA, across multiple landscapes. You have ability to track transports by the workflow. So you request a workflow, it goes through, it notifies who approver is, whether it's a regular change request, whether it's emergency change. You can even schedule for particular time. So if you have your regular cab approval, they just go through the open request and they can actually approve it. And all of these steps here actually highlights that the import itself, for instance, you can have execution log, import log. These things are something that you no longer need to go into an SAP system or you get into the OS. We provide this central change management for SAP. The same concept works for implementing change, whether I'm rolling out a kernel patch or I'm deploying a configuration parameter, etc. You create the change request and what it is and what it does can be automated. Let's move on to other tools. I want to highlight last month, again, we did a summon webinar, and SAP Download Manager was featured there in terms of what it does. This is where we see the consolidation for security audit purpose as well as storage. We actually can track usage from what you do, multiple developers, basis folks who are downloading nodes, etc., could be centralized. You get a full compliance in terms of what is downloaded, when it download, who did what, and who was adding to whatever basket. And this way allows us to centralize all that data instead of going down to the laptop and uploading. And, that's a security thing as well as a bandwidth consumption thing. And then you have multiple copies you need to deduplicate. So this is a central solution that we provided that interact with SAP support side and allows you to essentially pick items, add to your basket, have it automatically download to a central location and track the storage, the usage, etc. And so this is a SAP Team Download Manager. Very useful if you do an upgrade or migration. You're going to use a lot of software. I'm going to look at the data pipeline. So this is our SLT monitoring solution that we can actually monitor end to end for the SLT process. So a lot of this involves us being able to automatically discover if you're using SLT. We also have BODS, which is for data services. But let's say for SLT, you have end-to-end replication scenario. You have mass transfer IDs. We automatically discover them. We also track your table by table level if there are any issues, any replication delays or errors related to any table that are being replicated will be tracked. You will get alert notified when there's a latency as well as a error or if there are unprocessed record because maybe the source is down or the issues communicating with the source system. This problem, by the way, I found that the customer, they weren't doing this properly and they had a logging table on the source that actually exceeded 2 billion rows. So in HANA, there's a limit there, but they weren't aware that, something was low and so it was accumulating. That was going to cause a bigger problem. So we plug SLT monitoring in there. We're able to find the problem on the first couple hours and pointed out all the issues. So you get this kind of automation solution automatically. Other things I will highlight in a cybersecurity world also, we can also bring down SAP high critical security nodes to your system. This is implementation to help you automate your approach to which node is important, what is applicable to my system, has it been downloaded, is it new, do I need to include this in my latest patching scenario? So we can actually orchestrate the downloading of node as well. So we can compare what's in your system versus what's available on SAP and get that incorporated. So this is an example in the security world. One other one I want to highlight real quick here, and again, all of this actually is available on our docs.itconductor.com. This is where we document all the popular automation. It's not everything, but the popular automation scenarios are well documented here. Different scenarios you can see are here, so you can get into a lot more detail if you're interested into learn how they work. Before you, let's say, run a trial. But let's go and finish this particular analysis of a system refresh. So this is one of the most complex thing that you would do in the basis because it involves database, storage team, OS team, functional team, and QA, etc. But we can do refresh today end-to-end automated in a manner where every single step from source system to target, even taking a backup, restoring that, and getting things like the configuration of the 100 or plus things that you are exporting and saving to bring back automatically upon a refresh. So you can see different types of configuration information are stored. They can be imported automatically so that your system doesn't have wrong pointers to production, right? So this is our end-to-end system refresh. We also have a solution called Flux, which is an ABAP native. ABAP native Flux is actually allow you, if you're on a cloud environment like SAP, RISE, or ERP private, essentially you can do end-to-end PCA process, meaning that when you export, import, your system will look like it's QA, not production, and this is ABAP native so that you don't have access anymore to the OS database when you're hosted by, but you're still responsible for the functional refresh aspects. So this can actually address a lot of that. So we have multiple solutions of a refresh, whether it's end-to-end, whether it's PCA, and that will allow you to do that. Other things I would just quickly highlight, IT-Conductor is a lot more than dealing with operational stuff, but lifecycle management, we talked about this in our last webinar on a migration. We have full planning capability to orchestrate things. If you're doing a project to upgrade or migrate, there are a lot of things that can maybe migrate to S4, a lot of things are tracked. A lot of them are doing it now either on Microsoft Project or maybe Jira or spreadsheet. A lot of the tasks that could be implemented automatically can be incorporated into IT-Conductor. And as an example, we highlighted last time the summon tool, which does the kind of monitoring of the upgrade itself, right? So that's one thing that's very important is that if you are considering an upgrade migration and you don't want to be bottlenecked by a single resource, you have ability to track progress of projects like that. We have full visibility into the upgrade and process, and also do analytics, right? It's very important because SAP, once you do it, you lost all the thousands of phases and logs are in the file system. It's done. It's very hard to analyze it. We actually capture all of that information, allows you to do analysis for what phase took the longest time, etc. We can go into things like Gantt chart analysis. We can go into steps and phases, how long they took, what was the wait time, if there were errors, etc., and get alert as well. So this is a complete kind of integration into SAP SUM for helping you do lifecycle management. But I want to kind of come back to, after this demo here, quickly highlight one thing. We do have an onboarding program. So if you're interested in anything that we show you today, talk to us. There's no obligations. You can run trials, etc. But really to onboard from single customer all the way through a managed service provider and looking at what service catalog they need to enable an automation or fully orchestrated and visible spectrum of your environment. We can definitely get you help. And our program actually is very easy to onboard because we're an ageless platform. We are patented in US, in Europe. We have lots of already automation templates. We can help you onboard very quickly, scale and grow. You only pay for what you use, not everything else, right? So if you want monitoring, you want automation for certain things, we can help you do that very quickly. So at this point, I kind of run through a lot of things quickly. I want to take this opportunity to thank you and then open up for any questions and follow-up. So we do have a follow-up questionnaires, and of course recordings and things will come out of this, but feel free to reach out to us. Any one of our team can help you with the next phase if you're interested. Okay, just to recap, we have looked at made multiple stories of issues running operations today that are manual mode. We're looking at the actual need of automation, right? And from there, we look at the answers that we have in automating those through IT-Conductor solution and showing you some of the proof of customer success stories, as well as some examples of those scenarios implemented on the system. So through that, hopefully you've seen the end-to-end process on how we approach automation to solve issues related to managing a complex SAP environment. Okay, this time I'm going to complete this, and thank you for your time today, and we'll see you on the next episode or online. Thank you.